Hey guys, welcome back to yet another video, and behind me is my 1542 Alumacraft swamp boat. Now, over several years, I've owned lots of John boats, a little bit bigger than this, several smaller than this, and what I want to do is kind of go over why I think this is such a great swamp boat for this application, what I'm referring to when I say swamp boat, some of the things to look for, as well as real footage over several years of me using these size boats and what application use cases I see for them. On top of that, we're going to go over what to look for on Facebook Marketplace or elsewhere if you're considering searching for something like this. Now, when I refer to swamp boat, what I'm specifically talking about is a smaller boat that you can universally do a lot of freshwater stuff in. This boat behind me is going to be able to do freshwater fishing as well as be great for hunting applications, especially in areas where you may have to go into shallow water. Whether that be deer hunting, duck hunting, you're going to go out into a delta and go find some squirrels. This boat behind me has the capability to do it. And then in the summer months, you're going to be able to go down the river on calmer days, albeit, be able to park this thing, or you can even take it out and do some fishing, which I do a lot. Now, the other premise of this video is that we're talking $5,000 or less. You can get into these new for $5,000, but you're going to be looking at some smaller sizes. Specifically, we're going to be talking about used. Where is the value in this? How can you find that value? And what are some key things to look for when looking at these used John boats to make sure you're not going to have trouble on your hands? This specific example is an Alumacraft 1542. Now, we're not specifically talking about the brand, but we will talk about the size at 1542. I've specifically found 14 feet to 16 feet with a minimum 40-inch bottom, and up to, you can get away with a 52-inch bottom, is really that niche point. And what I mean by that when I'm talking about bottom, for those that don't know, the bottom is generally referring to how wide the boat is. You can do a 36-inch bottom. That's what you see a lot on Facebook Marketplace. I can tell you firsthand though, with two people, it gets very, very squirrely. So in my opinion, I would look for at least a 40-inch bottom that's going to give you more stability. You're going to be able to lean over the side, not worry about the back going underwater, anything like that. In my experience, this is actually my second 1542. I had a Topper Tracker 1542, same as this. It was wide enough to where you could get away with going on the edge of it a little bit, but still small enough you could easily squeeze through trees and get to those tight to reach areas. Now, the 14 to 16 foot size gives you some maneuverability, gives you some room. If you're fishing, if you have a game on board, you can put that game up front, but if you can sit back here in the back, you can even get away with 3 people, but be careful with your load limits, of course. Now, something you're immediately going to notice, this is a riveted John boat. This is not welded. Quite honestly, for that $5,000 price range, you're going to have a very difficult time finding a full package with a welded boat. They are more durable, but they're also heavier. We'll get in that into a minute. Quite frankly, I haven't had too many issues with riveted boats. If they do leak, it takes quite some time, and you're going to be really pounding them in the rivers. That's where these rivets really get loose, is by going on the rivers on rough days. The floor on these will flex some, and that's what starts to work those rivets loose. Now, if your general use application is calmer creeks, lakes, and backwoods, as long as you're going nice and slow, which is kind of the point of this boat, nice, comfortable, quiet, and slow to get back there, then you're not going to have issues for quite some time, hopefully. And if you do, well, it's as easy as getting some 5200 marine sealant, throwing it around there, and that'll get you going at least for a little while until you redo the buck rivets. First major thing being covered, the hull. We got 2 more, that being the trailer and the engine. We're going to start with the trailer though. First and foremost, probably the best part of this entire deal is this galvanized trailer. Now, I'm not really using this for salt water, but if I ever wanted to, I had the ability to do so, and galvanized just tends to last longer than steel trailers. Plus, you don't have to worry about painting them every 5 to 10 years. Couple nice things on this trailer. For one, this fold-in fold-away hitch. It's got a pin. Trust me, no issue stowing it. You don't have to worry about that pin. This is such a light boat, it's not a concern. But if you need some extra space in the garage, pop that pin out, and you see the tongue just folds right to the back. That's a great feature. If you're interested in something like this or accessories for your tiny boat build, I'm an affiliate with TB Nation. I really appreciate their support. I'll go ahead and put their link right here, as well as my code to get 5% off down in the description and up here in the corner. They got several products such as this and way more if you want to get your John boat exactly the way you want it. Now, coming back there a little bit, a pro tip for you is a trailer lock. Make sure you get a covered lock. For whatever reason, if you're in a rural area, you get stuck in the mud, you're in a tight spot, whatever the case, you're gonna want a lock that is covered and easy to pop off so you don't get mud and stuff caked in here. I use my boat in a lot of rural areas, lots of muddy roads and tracks and back roads, and I've had locks before that I haven't had a cover on. Trust me, it's a pain. You got to spend forever digging mud that's just dried up all throughout this. Spend the extra money, get a protected lock. I've had this one for 10 years, 4 boats, covered in mud, never an issue. Definitely worth it. I'll go ahead and link one of those as well. Now, the other thing you'll want to get is a tire. You definitely want a spare tire with you. Again, this is a rural boat. Areas where not a lot of people are going to get into. That's kind of the name of the game with this thing, along with general fishing or general areas that you can get to. But these tires are a little bit larger than a standard donut. That's a good thing. It's going to give you more ground clearance. We'll get that to in a second. But if this doesn't come with the boat and you buy it used, make sure to add that to the cost because you'll definitely want a spare just in case. As mentioned, ground clearance. Now, several John boats you'll see have tiny little donuts. One, they're not good past 50-55. You will blow out a bearing or the tire itself. And two, they lack ground clearance. Your axle may be sitting, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches off the ground. It's not very good. It will get stuck in mud. You'll be dragging the axle. It's not going to be fun, and you will damage something at some point. These little bit larger tires, this is a 4.8 by 12. This is a reasonable size. You can do highway speeds on this, 65, you can do 70, and you're going to have some ground clearance. Here I have about 8 to 12 inches to play with. While it's not huge, if I run into some mud, I got a good beefy axle across, this torsion axle. Plus, with the hub actually coming down a little bit, it's giving you more usable ground clearance right here. This still could get hung up with some of the deeper ruts we have, but it's less likely to do so than something shorter. Now, really the other two final things, when it comes to bunks, if you need to see your trailer using your truck more often, get PVC posts that are nice and high. You're going to be able to see those, especially on this narrow trailer. However, if you're dealing with a lot of current and you want something to make it easier to get the boat back on the trailer in current, these bunks are better suited for that task than the skinny PVC poles are. Now, last thing I have on this boat for the trailer is a transom saver. This is an overbuilt one. This is rated for 150 horsepower. The reason I went for that, I need something with the additional length because the back of the trailer is so far over there, and then these bunks come out. But a lot of the damage or pressure you're going to have on the transom is not necessarily when you're underway, although you will have quite a bit of pressure. It's going to be when you're trailering. Whenever this thing is bouncing up and down on the road, you hit a pothole, that's what's going to put stress on this transom. This transom in particular is already pretty worn out. At some point, I'm going to have to do something with it, to be 100% honest, but this will get me by. So that's why I went ahead and got one of these. Something else to keep in mind when you're pricing your build out, and some of the things you might have to buy afterwards. Clearly a little bit humid out today, but finally on to the engine. Now you have a few choices here. You can get a long-tail mud motor, surface drive, gas outboard, or electric outboard. Longtail mud motor, if you're running shallow creeks, it's all you're doing, and it's not like flooded timber. Yeah, it'll work, that's fine. Have a friend that has one, he loves it, go for it. If you're doing flooded timber specifically, don't go for longtail. It reaches so far back behind the boat, you're not gonna have nearly as much mobility, no reverse, and you don't really have a neutral unless you remember to pull that thing out of the water. So if you're doing that timber stuff, I'd stay away. Surface drive, yeah, that's a good option. Just keep in mind, 15 horsepower outboard versus surface drive, you're running really a shallower pitch prop, so you're not really making as much speed or as much torque on that prop. So expect lower performance generally from a 15 horse surface drive versus a 15 horse outboard. Just something to consider. If you're okay with that trade-off, all for it. I don't run it particularly because I film and everything of that nature. It's just a little loud for my liking, and you have to go to more expensive models in order to get reverse, which is something I use quite often, especially with jug fishing. You got short distances, lakes under 100 acres, or you're just cruising a little bit of flooded timber you can get pretty close to. Electric outboard's a great option. You don't have to worry about water feeding into the engine to cool it. You don't have to worry about hitting stumps nearly as often because you're not really going that fast. The electric outboards tend to have a much smaller profile, so not going to be hung up in vines as much in flooded waters. There's a lot of great things. Fortunately, I have an E 1.0 e-propulsion. Absolutely love it for those applications. For those longer distances, it's hard to beat an outboard. Nice and quiet, forward, neutral, reverse. You can find parts for them relatively easily, and there's a lot of robust features built into outboards, and they've really gotten pretty darn good over the last 10 years. They've just turned to super reliable engines you can count on. Even if you go back to the early 2000s, the two-stroke Yamahas, as long as you run them and the carbs stay clean, extremely, extremely reliable and robust things to have out in the woods. Couple things you want to look for. First and foremost, you want to have redundancy, as I've mentioned. So for instance, if I couldn't get this engine to start, I have a trolling motor in my case. Trolling motor fails for whatever reason, and it doesn't work on this battery or the one up front. I have a paddle. Now, for that being said, this has electric start. You don't necessarily need it, but it's a great and nice feature to have. If it ever fails, you want a pull cord for your engine. You want to have some way to start it. You can generally find pull cords up to about 30 horsepower. After that, you're not really going to see them. So 30 horsepower or less is going to mean your main area. The other thing I'm going to recommend, that's why I went with something lighter, is with this 15 horse, you're going to want, well, really any of them, you want manual trim or tilt. You want manual tilt, doesn't have trim. The reason for that is a lot of these outboards have a built-in kick-up feature. So this bar right here, you push that up. Say you're running in some timber, something like that. You end up hitting something and it hits the bottom of the lower unit. Instead of it just being forced through, it will kick it up. And as you can see, it sets it up like that. Say it hits something and it really comes up. This will push it out of the water, out of harm's way. That's a phenomenal feature that's really going to save your lower unit and make sure you really don't mess something up where you can't get out. So I strongly recommend finding an outboard with those two features. A second, redundant starting ability, as well as the ability to just kick up out of the way. You can get a kick up plate, granted, more weight, more expense, and you can have, trim and tilt, but you're still going to be running it at the slow speeds that you would be running this outboards for in order for it to work. So you might as well just get a manual one. That's easy enough to pull up out of the way, even if you don't have much upper body strength. Now I've covered everything I specifically looked for in a swamp boat and why I chose those items. Now we're going to go through what to look out for when you start looking to buy something like this. Or again, we're talking about the $5,000 mark. What are things to watch out for on Facebook Marketplace or elsewhere when you're starting to look at boats? Well, first things first, don't get all held up on all the extra goodies. The trolling motor came with it, the fish finder, front deck, seat pedestal, and seats. All of this came with it, even this back depth finder. These are great features, don't get me wrong, but you gotta keep in mind the three most important things have to be solid first. the hull, the trailer, and then the engine. If those three things aren't solid, it doesn't matter how nice the features inside the boat are, because you'll end up having to, like, say the hull is completely destroyed. All these buck rivets are leaking. Well, chances are a lot of this stuff isn't going to fit into a new boat, and you're going to have a major headache redoing all this anyway. Now, another thing is, whenever you do hopefully get to take this for a water test, and ask for a water test, make sure it's not leaking from these buck rivets. Go try to take it out for 15-30 minutes, get a rough idea. If it is leaking, how much. Check the back of the boat towards the end, and say you're out for 30 minutes. Yeah, you got 1/8 of an inch of water, probably not a big deal. Probably got a good amount of time before you have to worry about those buck rivets. You get back and there's already a 1/2 inch or 1 inch of water in the back, you may want to stay away. You're probably going to have to start dealing with some headaches in that case. So keep in mind. Trailers aren't cheap. This Magic Tilt galvanized, guarantee you it's probably $1,500 or $2,000 brand new. Yeah, you can find them used, but if you have a steel trailer, it looks completely rusted out, just stay away from it. The last thing you need is a trailer collapsing and then you have a huge insurance claim because it's hit somebody on the road. It's just not safe. So look for a good quality trailer. It doesn't have to be perfect. If it has some splotchy, rough spots, yeah, go ahead, clean them up. You can paint the trailer. It's very easy to do, plenty of tutorials. Something else you want to keep in mind, see if it has butting bearings like this, where you can put a Zerk fitting onto that. Put some grease in it before you go home, and you'll probably be in pretty good shape if you have one of those, and you just don't have grease everywhere like this wheel does. Clearly, one of those bearings at one point did go out. Now, the engine. Engines are always a little bit concerning. You're going to always do your generic checks. First and foremost, on the test drive, does it run? Is it bogging? EFI, if it's bogging, you probably have a plugged high fuel pressure line, such as right there. Could be several things. Your fuel pump may not be working with a carburetor, may not be getting enough fuel, maybe too much fuel, etc. See if it's bogging. It's something you'll have to investigate. Always check your engine oil. Nice, simple, and easy. Find where the engine oil is. You find several videos out on that. On this particular engine, it's right here. Make sure it's just filled up and that it's relatively clean. Even if it's dark, not the end of the world. Just make sure to ask the last time it was serviced, and if they did it or someone else did it, and then you judge that person's character. Finally, with the lower unit, make sure you don't have cracks, anything like that. As you can see, there's not a lot of paint missing here. Now, it's okay to have some paint missing off the lower unit. That's not a huge red flag. However, if the paint's just gone across this entire thing, yeah, may want to stay away. That could have a bad water pump. Could have who knows how many clogs up here in the head with sand, dirt, debris. So you don't want an overheating head. Now, something I learned, and it's a quick tip. Yeah, you may not be able to flush the motor with them standing there. On the water test, you should be able to see it ping, but if not, go in here. This is the cold water outlet. You can quickly unscrew that and take a look inside. And you can see that's pretty well clear. There's not a whole lot in there. But if you undo one of these, and I've seen it several times, and it's just plugged with sand, mud, shell, stuff like that, yep, once again, stay away. Go find something else, because you're probably going to have issues or you're going to be doing some work. Obviously, these are all caveats. If you know what you're doing, know how to fix it, then kudos to you. Have at it, you'll get a better price on it. However, if you don't want the headaches to begin with, just some things to check out for. Look for grease points, like right there. Has that been greased? Yes, that has. All right, good. So they're generally taking care of it. Take a look at the transom. This transom, it's in bad shape. Look how many backup plates there are. You got 1, 2, 3 backup plates, 4 on this side. This transom is wood, it is shot, and since it's welded caps on each side, it's a nightmare to get out and fix. And when I finally do, it's going to be very expensive. So it's something to keep in mind with the price of boats. Granted, this is ran just fine like this, but it's not nearly as robust with transom as other boats, and if I hit something going quick enough, yeah, there's a potential for the entire back of this transom just come flying off. That's the reason I have the smaller engine bolted whereas normally you get away just clamping them on. Well, I think I generally covered everything I wanted to. I guess the last final note I'll make here is, like I said, I wanted this to be light. I want to be able to go into those shallow water environments and be able to tow this thing with anything. I mean, I can hook this thing up to a 500cc ATV and ought to be able to tow it without a problem. That's what I'm looking for. The engine itself, maybe 100 pounds. The hull is extremely light, being that thinner gauge aluminum. There are some pros and cons there, but I will take the lightweight. Ran these thinner hulls before, haven't had too many issues. I don't even run a very big gas tank. One of the benefits of running a little 15 versus a 25 or 30, that 3-gallon tank right there, it'll last just about the entire summer, it seems like. I mean, of course, you do a lot of running, it might be an issue, but I ran, I think, 20 miles on my last trip. I didn't even use a gallon out of that 3. I'd be shocked if it was even 3/4 of a gallon. It's just not enough to really worry about. So less weight in the boat. But yeah, some of the things you want to look out for. Hopefully I covered them. Hopefully seeing these video examples have helped to kind of illuminate my points a little bit more as to what I'm referring to. And it kind of all makes sense, and hopefully you find it helpful. Well guys, that's about it for me. I gotta get this boat ready to do some fishing tomorrow, but I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please make sure to share, like, subscribe for more, and as always, thanks for watching.